And I think so. We're like talking about like picking a third-party library, and charting libraries are like I think a good example of like this, like why we want to use third-party libraries. Like, oh, and let me share I'm screen sharing, right? Yeah. So
Neo.
what was that?
I say, yeah, we see Neo.
Okay, cool. That's good. So, I mean, let's go like a charting library, like is probably going to be something if we were to write from scratch. That to me seems like it kind of be like this whole other like beast in and of itself. Like that'd be a pretty, potentially could be a pretty big thing to write. If we're looking like our real estate app, and I just wanted to like kind of look at, where did I throw a link to this? Oh, did I not throw the link to the website? I swear I had it somewhere. Where did I put that? Oh, sorry, I called it wireframe. Duh. Yeah, I mean, just going to like our so because what we want to be building eventually is like this chart feature. And you can imagine if while this is loading, like building out a chart is going to be a ton of work. If we did it from scratch, I mean, just as this is loading, good old Heroku delay. Just kind of wait for this. If you had to like time guess how long, if you had to do this from scratch, how long do you think that would take?
Days.
And maybe if it was just this one chart and this is all you had to do, yeah, I think we, it's definitely doable. But and then maybe someone would come along and then be like, well, I want this to be like a pie chart instead of a bar chart. And then it's like, well, then you got to go write a pie chart. So yeah, I think this could take a second to do this. So when we get, and maybe you do have the resources, and maybe you do, even if you were doing this from scratch, I guarantee you'd probably still want to like use a library to help. But anyway, so yeah, there's going to be lots of times you're not going to want to like reinvent the wheel. Like someone's done a chart. There's plenty of charting libraries out there. So you don't want to like reinvent the wheel. You want to go use some other people's code. So that's when we're going to go pick a third-party library. So when we're thinking about what we want to like when we want to pick one, here's my kind of list of what to think about. So first of all, we want to think about like how well does the library match our use case. So, if we can go find a charting library that has like a bar chart and, we can hover over it, then perfect. So this one, is to me one of the bigger ones, because sometimes you find a library that like gets you like 90% of the way there, and then you have to add on top of it. So obviously, I think the closer the library matches, that makes it more like a candidate, that you want to use. There's another thing. So, a lot of the time it doesn't exactly match your use case, or like you want to tweak it, a little. So this is the next thing I kind of ask, or one thing I'd ask, like, is it customizable? Like, can I go in and can I tweak it? Can I make it different? And if so, how difficult does that seem to customize it? Another thing I'd look at, I'd go look at like just the repo in general, like kind of seeing what's like the status of the repo, like when was the last commit? Like this is really just checking like, is it being maintained? Are there like, is it being used? So when's the last commit, or like how many commits does it have? How many stars does the repo have? Like how popular is it? Who is the owner of the repo? You know, when we look at something like React is owned by Facebook. That's just like it's just nice because Facebook has, you know, billions of dollars. So I think they have resources to maintain React. Another thing is like, how many issues does it have open? So you go look at like the issues, like do those issues seem to be, you know, are they working on the issues? Is there threads? The issues part, and we'll look at this can kind of almost be like a little Stack Overflow for that specific library. Has anyone ended up on a GitHub page where you found the answer on like an issue thread for like a bug or something? Like, let's just go to React GitHub. What I mean by that, maybe you're a little unsure what I'm talking about, because you might have just like happened to Google yourself there and not like directly intentionally gone there, but let's just find. Have you ever like found yourself like when you're Googling like a bug and you're on, you end up in some GitHub repo and you're like on like a thread, and then like you'll find the answer in one of like the responses?
Didn't even know that was a thing.
Yeah. This comes up a lot. So you'll probably, especially maybe once you start working more with like third-party libraries, you'll end up, and I don't, it's like largely via Google, like you'll Google a bug, like copy and paste like an error or something, and then, you know, the result, like you might find the answer in one of these threads. Because yeah, anyone, since GitHub's, you know, I can come in and like create an issue for React. Like as just me, James, I can go in and like, hey, say, you know, React is broken, fix it. And they may or may not get to it. But see, like, so if I wanted to do a bug report for React, and we'll talk about this when we get into like debugging and like testing our code. See, they want like information about what the bug is, how to reproduce it. If I don't fill this out, they're just going to ignore it. So you can go in and you can, if you think you find the bug with React, you can go create a report. And then they, you know, may or may not fix it depending on if it's valid or not. So that's what I mean by when we're looking at issues. That's kind of, you know, random people, or maybe, you know, the developers at React are creating these issues. Cool. Another big one that I like is, you know, do they have good documentation? You know, for these third-party libraries, like a lot of the time it is like you've never used them before, so you do rely heavily on their documentation. Another thing with like how many stars the repo has and who is the owner of it and like the documentation, this just like the more popular it is, the more it's being used. It's just more, the more likely it is to find other documentation on it, like Stack Overflows, or maybe on Medium, people have written on how to use it. So documentation is huge on these third-party libraries because, you know, like I said, these are things you're not just going to intuitively know how to use. Like they're going to have to explain to you how to use them. Another thing you can do is you can actually, for smaller things, you can go explore the code. What does it look like? Maybe you don't even need it. Maybe you can kind of just look at how their code works, and you can maybe, kind of take what you need from it. Another thing that I like to do is like, test it out. Do they have demos? Try it out. A lot of these libraries like link to like code sandboxes or stuff like that, where you can go and experiment with it. And then another thing, and this kind of goes along with the testing, like just, try it out. Before you make the decision, go write a small code snippet. So let's just go look at like the GitHub stuff though, and kind of just, if I were looking at GitHub, like some of the things I can tell about, a package or like a third-party library, if it's good, once again, just kind of looking at it here visually. So we have like the stars, like how many people like it. I mean, obviously React, 180,000 likes. That's a pretty good one. A lot of forks. So you can think about a fork is essentially like, it's a specific way, it's like a way to clone a repo onto your GitHub. You're not cloning it down to your computer. You clone the repository to your GitHub account. Maybe look at that, later in the course. Yeah, some other things. You can go in, see, now that we know a little more about like pull requests and stuff like that and commits, so you can go through and you can see like how many commits they have. Like, almost 15,000 commits. The last one was 14 hours ago. So, that's good. Sometimes you'll go into a library and you'll see like the last commit was like 5 years ago. And you're like, oh, well, doesn't mean you can't use it. It just means, hey, it looks like this one is no longer maintained. And then you can kind of you can go through and you can just kind of visually see their like commit history. Like, this looks like it's pretty active, right? 14 hours ago, 6 days ago, 5 months ago, 4 months ago. Looks like some of these things are the Git attributes that hasn't been updated in 8 years, but that's fine. Not everything has to be updated. You can go look at like their pull requests, like see what's open. Like you can look at their closed ones, see like this has 200, like it's kind of fun to look at, right? This has 230 open pull requests and 11,000 closed pull requests. And then, yeah, you can go in and like go see all the pull requests and see like what files have changed. And these can kind of be interesting to look at because you can kind of maybe see like some of the threads, like, what like a review kind of might look like. You can leave notes in these, but yeah. Kieran, this is the Redux guy. Yeah. It's kind of weird when like a developer, but yeah, this guy's like he's like a pretty big main like React developer. He created Redux, but anyway. So you can go through and you can like, yeah, you can see like the conversation of like, these pull requests. And so you can get a lot of information here just from like the GitHub. You can see the issues. So when I'm talking about the issues and how many open issues there are, you can maybe think of like open issues as maybe potential bugs. So if you saw a library, I mean, you want to see this. If you saw a library with like 10,000 open issues and like 100 closed issues, that might be a warning. It's not to say it's bad that you have open issues, but once again, you can kind of just come in and look at these and see like, this is being maintained. There's like this thread of communication, like it's being worked on. Like people are reporting bugs and then the developers are fixing them. And obviously like React is like would be like a gold standard case because, it has like all of these like things, like it has a lot of stars, a lot of commits, big owner, that kind of thing. So there's that. So let's kind of get more specific now and say like, now we're looking at like, because these are just kind of general guidelines when picking a library, but let's look at like a specific case of like picking a charting library. So how do we get started with this? Because we want to use a charting library for this app. We don't want to write it ourselves. So let's kind of go through the process of picking a library. So we need to like, because this would be part of like, this task right here where we're like, looking into how to do charting. So that's kind of what we're doing. And this would be like part of your, day-to-day work, like researching libraries. So we first kind of need to know what kind of charts do we need. I mean, ours is pretty simple. We just need a bar chart. But, we could also maybe think down the road, like this is just, like an MVP or minimal viable product of this app. And maybe down the road, we know we're going to maybe add some different kind of charts. So this is a good starting point, but, maybe we kind of have this idea that we're going to want to do more charts down the road. So we could keep that in the back of our minds. So, we would maybe say, hey, we do want like we want like some pretty, we want a couple different kind of charts, some bar charts, some maps, line charts, stuff like that. And, we would say, we don't need it to be interactive, but I'd say like, we're going to want it to be interactive. Maybe that's not like a have to have, but a nice to have. So you can hear those two terms in like development, where it's like a need to have and a nice to have. And I think you can kind of imagine what those mean. Like need to have is like you have to have it. Like it's a requirement of the app. A nice to have is something that would be nice, like time permitting. And that's sometimes the way how you can like, when you do your Trello board, you would have like a nice to have feature and a need to have, stuff like that. So now your nice to have features are probably going to be at the bottom of your backlog and the need to have are going to be at the top. Like you're not going to start working on this one if this one is not done. So it's just kind of like a good way to think about that. And when you start doing your portfolio projects, that's going to be a distinction that we're going to start making, just even if it's just, kind of like a mental one. It's going to help you get what you need to get done. Like you don't want to be working on these nice to haves if you don't have the need to haves done. Cool. How customizable do we want it? I don't think we need this to be super customizable. What do you think the downside or like what the trade-off is with custom? Like if we find something that's more customizable, what do you think
Probably
might be
more
like a
complicated.
consequence? So I think I cut you off.
Oh no, you're good. It'd probably be a little bit more complicated, right?
Yeah, that's not like a solid rule, but yeah, generally, if we want to customize, if we want a library that's more customizable, it might be a little more difficult to work with. you know, if we're a lot of the times, if we're more flexible with like, you know, just using the library as is and as designed, you know, it can be most of the time like relatively straightforward. It's like when we want to start customizing in it and have it like fit maybe a more specific use case, that's where it can, you know, get a little more challenging. So I'll kind of show you like a library that is very customizable, but is also pretty challenging to use with especially with charts. What is our data going to look like? I think we kind of know that from yesterday. Like we're kind of just what I mean by that is like we're going to have, you know, cities, and with cities we're going to have like an average price of a city. So it's like this is like an average cost. Yeah, does anyone have any more, like when we're thinking about charts, can you think of any more? Like what kind of things might we want to think about? Or this might be a hard question because you maybe never even thought about like what we would maybe need. So
Oh,
I'm
I
going to
guess
say
you
this
need like your average house price, stuff like that, right?
yeah, average house price. I mean, we could like, what else? Let's just kind of maybe think like, what else could we maybe graph? I don't know. That's a hard question. I can't even really could do, you know, price by beds. I mean, price per square foot. I mean, we could come up with a lot of charts, but yeah, we'll just say like we just want to do this bar chart, but we also want to find a library that down the road seems to be like we could do more when those problems come up. So now we can get into like, well, which library do we want to use? Well, that's where we need to kind of start investigating. So one way I like to do this is like, you know, just just Google charting libraries, like React or something. So I could go in, just do a little search for that. Charting, I can spell charting libraries, React or JavaScript. And this is, I mean, we can get in, I think this is a great way if it's something popular like chart libraries, you can even go find like articles. And now we can go just kind of familiar, like see, well, what's even out there. And, you know, you can go in and you can do some research. Like we have recharts, we have React Charts Js2, Victory. So yeah, just on your own, like go start Googling some chart libraries. So, or I guess I can like kind of, so or you can do that, or you can just kind of follow along. So here's recharts. I could go to like their guide, some examples. Like, okay, kind of seeing what I can do. These are all line charts. Looks like I can, you know, they all kind of looks interactive a little. Looks like I could do multiple ones. Oh, this one looks like it's got like a nice little scroll in, scroll out. So it's like, sometimes you don't even realize this is stuff you can do until you go kind of like look at stuff, because, ooh, maybe this could be like a cool little feature if you had like a lot of data, like you had a lot of columns. So you could kind of zoom in and zoom out. You know, different starting points. I mean, these are all just line charts too. Then we have like area charts, that's just essentially a line chart with the shown filled in underneath. So yeah, I mean, we're starting to see like, a lot of stuff we could do with this. So we have bar charts, stacked bar charts. And these all look like they have demos in Code Sandbox. So I can like look at a chart and then I can go like code it. So as I'm looking through like this rechart library, I'm like, okay, cool. They're like giving me a working example. They're giving me a link to the Code Sandbox. It looks pretty functional, semi-interactive. There's a lot of, looks like there's a lot we can do with this. Like a lot of different charts. And, sometimes just like kind of looking through some of these, then you kind of start to get ideas of maybe things you could chart that you really haven't thought of. So pie charts. We have these radar charts. These are kind of cool. We have stuff like this. I don't even know what that is. Simple radar bar chart. We have some like maps. Tree map. I always thought these were called heat maps, but tree maps. So yeah, I think like and it looks like the the documentation's not that bad. Like given if I go look, it's giving me, here's all their components. It's giving me some good documentation on their props. And then I could go to their GitHub. 18,000 stars, that's a ton. That's, I mean, anything in the thousands is, is good. It looks like, once again, yeah, commits like 25 days, that's fine. Doesn't have to be like 5 hours. Sometimes, people like places won't commit like every week, but this looks like it's being, maintained. Go into like the issues. They have some open issues, but it looks like they're maintaining stuff. And just, yeah, the documentation was good. Who is the owner of Recharts? I don't know who owns this. Recharts.org. They got like a blog. So that doesn't like there's much going on there, but they have, this looks decent. I mean, I think for what we need, this would be like, or like for our little example, like, yes, I think this looks like it has what we need, but that doesn't mean I would stop there. I should go look at some other stuff. So we looked at React Charts Js2. Where's their GitHub? So go to their site. So this is a different library. 5,000 stars. Not as popularity doesn't. I mean, that's pretty good. Like 5,000 stars, pretty good. It looks like it's being maintained. You can kind of see some commits. Go to the examples, like the docs. Let's go to like examples. So looks like they have a little more, like I can click on these. So it's a little interactive. You can look at the code. Yeah, so this one looks like it has like a similar amount of, some things. It's got the Code Sandbox. It's maybe just got its little like take on things. I don't know if it's as well documented or as customizable, but this seems like it would, for what we want to do, I think this one would work too. And you might see like there's going to be differences between like maybe how they look, so that can also now become a difference, like their style, like which one do you think looks better? So that can kind of go into your equation. There's this victory. So we could go to their documentation. All right. Interesting. Broken link. So yeah, you can just go through, look at, all the charts, find the ones you like, or like, just find the ones that match your use case. And a lot of this can be like how they look. So I think for what we are doing, like any of these would really work. If we were keeping things simple. But this is kind of the process that you would do, just spend some time. And, I want to, also go through and, go look at different people's opinions on what other people say about these libraries. And then like by kind of looking through these articles, you might see ones like pop up again and again. So that might help you narrow it down to, a couple of them. Like here's Recharts again, here's React Charts Js2. So that can be like another way where you're kind of like getting, a vote count. And yeah, maybe, so a lot of times also you could do charting. You can, with React, you don't have to necessarily find a React library. You can maybe just do a plain old JavaScript library. But that's probably going to be more work for you. But once again, with probably like a plain JavaScript library, you might be able to have more be able to customize it more. And this D3JS one, this is probably like, I don't know, this one's probably like one of the best. Like if you want custom, like if you want to like really do crazy stuff with charts, this one's a good one. I don't know, does anyone like read the New York Times or like, and they have like during the election, they'll have like these crazy like interactive graphs or charts. Like that's D3. So you can get like these cool like heat maps of like the country. What else do we have? Like it's just all sorts of like crazy things you can do with this. Let's find, these ones can be like, almost like illustrations and very interactive. So has anyone like, you go to like a news site and it's like, you can like really go in and like explore the data like visually. So that is probably a D, like it's probably D3 behind the scenes. And if you like look at recharts, or I would say like, I wonder if this one uses it behind the scenes. I'm pretty sure. If we went that to their GitHub, like I'm pretty sure these probably all use D3 behind the scenes. D3. Yeah. See, they all have like D3 in here. So a lot of these libraries, these React libraries, these charting libraries, like are using D3. So they kind of wrap it. But yeah, if you want to like, if you're a big chart nerd and you want to like do some really cool stuff, you can use D3. But these are not going to be like super straightforward to make. I mean, there's the code for that. But they're like super cool. Like they're really like can be really interactive. So I think this one's pretty cool. So yeah, this is what like this is in the New York Times, just like kind of looking like, you know, how people can win or like how states voted. So you get these like really interactive, you know, charts. Now, this is essentially just like a crazy interactive like chart. So with D3, you can like create something from like your own little, like your own imagination. Cool. Questions on that? Don't feel bad. Like I think like when you are picking libraries, you know, take some time. I think that the takeaway here is like take some time to research them. Don't just use the first thing you find. Like go through, compare and contrast. Like, and then you know, pick the one. Like as a group, pick the one you think, you know, works best for you. We did a lot of charting at like Teleperformance. So I spent, you know, I spent a lot of time like figuring out what charting library I wanted to use. Cool. But yeah, I didn't choose D3 because D3 would have like D3 would take like a couple months to like learn how to use. It's like it's hard. There's a huge learning curve to it. So I'd say let's just go ahead. Let's just use this one. So let's say we go through and we pick recharge. So yeah, we've picked our library. We could go ahead and like throw that in our links. Charts. That's our library we were using. And something you probably want to do is like, this should probably be the only charting library that you use. I had like one group last cohort in their portfolio project. They had 3 different like charting libraries that like people added individually. Like I'd say that's going to look bad, right? Because then you're going to have charts that like are styled a little different. So with some of these libraries, it's just pick one and then stick with it, especially if it's like UI stuff, because that will stick out. Cool. Let's take a break here. Has everyone filled out your portfolio project choosings or?
Yeah, I did.
I need to do it right now.
Okay.
I sent mine in this morning, so yeah.
Let's take a break. We'll do a little longer break. So if you haven't, please fill those out, or if you don't, we'll just kind of throw you wherever. If you don't care, then you don't have to, but let's take a break. Let's come back. I'll give you a little extra time for those who have not filled them out. Let's just come back at 10:40. And we can go from there.
So I think you cut out for me just when you said the time. What time?
10:40.
Okay, sounds good.
Cool. And yeah, let me know if you have any questions on the projects.